Hey there, it's me, Ryan, or I guess I should say the name of the channel, S Reaper G, or as a kind viewer once said, Ass Reaper G. Is it a reference to Mass Effect? Or Mass Erect? Or Ass Effect? Or am I just making terrible jokes? Probably both. Or is it just an attempt to avoid being associated with my arch nemesis and fellow Ryan creator, Ryan's World? I'll let you decide. It's both. We're gonna talk about Mass Effect Andromeda today, aka the best Mass Effect game in the entire series. Don't at me. Relax, I was just joking. Did that make you angry though? Because if it did, then hold on to that anger and smash that subscribe button for more emotional manipulation. So I started my new playthrough going on and off with various difficulties to help me get certain trophies. I'm a bit of a trophy hunter. I'm sorry, did I say trophy hunter? I meant to say whore. I'm a trophy whore. I'd sell everything that I own on this planet for a platinum trophy or two. I'm only partially joking. I tell you that because you'll no doubt note in my footage at times that my squad and I are just ripping through everything and everyone, and that's because I'm just really strong. Also, I played mostly in narrative mode. It's the best mode for people who are not good at games, and for whiny little babies like myself who want to absorb as much of this game's content as possible to refresh my memory without the difficulty attached. Okay, let's get into the substance. You're sick of my bad jokes and you're getting ready to leave in disgust. Let's talk about the graphics first. Right at the start, it appears Mass Effect Andromeda is readying to become a major step up for the franchise in terms of cinematics, animations, and character design. But something you should know, that this right here is the best the game ever looks, is right here in these opening sequences. After that is where most of the issues with Andromeda come on full display. The characters' faces are visibly very plastic and flat. They rarely ever seem emotive about anything, which you'd think the fact that their Pathfinder is none other than famous actor Adam Driver would necessitate a bit of a stronger response. I'm Adam Driver. I was in Star Wars. Kylo Ren. Yes, that's correct. Okay, I know he doesn't look that much like Adam Driver, but humor me, please. The animation itself is very clunky. In Mass Effect 1's remaster, a lot of people noted how wooden and stiff the animations are now in 2021, something that improves as the trilogy progresses. But I would wager a guess that if you go back and look at reviews from 2007 of Mass Effect, a great number of the reviews would express how great and realistic the animations were for the time. Now take Mass Effect Andromeda, a game from 2017, almost 10 years later, and the animations, at least in dialogue and conversation, are rarely better than even Mass Effect 2's animations. Characters often just stand there and recite their dialogue, and so does your character Ryder. I expect this more in sequences where Ryder is doing side missions and talking with their crew, as a way of maybe saving resources for the main story moments and development, and even those are relatively inconsistent when it comes to character animations and dialogue sections. Even when it does have significant momentum in scenes, it doesn't look much of an improvement beyond Mass Effect 3 from 2012. I get that not every game has to have the same quality of visuals or quality of animations and facial animations that a game like The Last of Us Part 2 has, but for a series that was already progressing in a nice, neat, and concise way from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 to Mass Effect 3, and a series that was once hailed as raising the bar for interactive entertainment, Mass Effect Andromeda is a bit of a disappointment, at least in this regard. Also, I'm sorry, but Stone-Faced Shepard from Mass Effect 1 is just much more charming than my poorly made Adam Driver Ryder. Sorry, Adam. Shepard is the GOAT. Environments themselves, like the planets of Eos, Havarl, and Aya, showcase Andromeda's visuals at their absolute best. Specifically drawing on that heavy contrast color palette Mass Effect has always had, the lighting here really showcases the density of the game's environments as well. Havarl stands out for me in a map that is smaller than a lot of its counterparts, but boasts overgrown facilities and huge drops to its lower sections, which communicates what you've already learned by the time you've had a chance to take it all in. The planet is slowly dying. The beauty of stepping into a remnant vault for the first time is also worth noting, and quite stunning. Less stunning is that one time I fell in a vault and I respawned to the Nomad in the vault. I don't know if I have video of it, but I do have a screenshot to prove that I didn't make this up. What is happening? I don't know. I really don't. The Frostbite engine that Mass Effect Andromeda is built on is really good at building these visual environments, so it is not super surprising that that is one of the best looking parts about this game, even if some of the other parts of the game do suffer as a result. Less flattering in a lot of ways is the camera work. I am talking about the cinematography. It's often very flat, not dynamic or impactful at all in cutscenes. It simply shows the same mid-shots and over-the-shoulder shots you expect, but again, rarely is it ever visually interesting. It's legit just the same 3 shots I used in a short film I made in college. Except here, I was just trying to pass a class. This is the follow-up to the award-winning Mass Effect Trilogy. This is definitely going to be subjective, but I can't help but go back to Mass Effect 2 just to compare 2 dialogue scenes to explain what I mean.
Something must move you. You're as genetically Krogan as you can get.
I see suffering, the dead, and I think weak. I'm supposed to be strong. My guts were grown from thousands more worthy. The dead were weak. If they were strong, I wouldn't be needed. I don't know why Okeer started teaching. When he turned on the tank the first time, I screamed. Weak, pitiful.
So you started small, but you became what you are. Not everyone gets that chance.
I'm built for strength, but didn't earn it. I just am.
I visited that cafe the Angara consider a bar. Asked for their hardest stuff. It was weird, which I like, but had almost no punch. Lightweight. Whoa.
Steady now.
That stuff must have a slow absorption rate. Whoops. Oh, Ryder. It's just... This museum reminds me of being on Haitiana during my indentured service as a student. They even have a whole section on the Remnant. I didn't come to Andromeda to follow in someone else's footsteps.
It didn't occur to you there'd be indigenous species here? Sentients with a rich history, leading full lives?
Of course, I know that it's very easy to cherry pick two dialogue sequences from these two games and compare them with each other, where one clip may have been specifically picked to make one look better than the other, but it is something that I noted throughout my playtime this time around in Andromeda. Trust me when I say I try to be as fair as possible in the clip selection. Overall, Mass Effect Andromeda looks fine, but I have to say the visuals did not hold up too well, especially playing it via backwards compatibility on PS5 with a 4K TV. Textures often look blurry and smudged out. Again, I expect some kind of lack of visual fidelity inside dialogues and less important quests with character models, but even major characters seem like they were just made by the character creator. By me, and you can see by my terribly created character that looks like Adam Driver, vaguely so, but not quite. Oh, and case in point, look what they did to the poor Asari. They all have the same face. It's not even subtle. I know that games reuse character models and they reuse assets, but this is just pretty egregious to the point where it's so obvious. I don't know if this was a case of lack of time or resources, but it's definitely one of the more sour points I have about the game, because it just becomes distracting at some point, in my opinion. I do like the Angara design, by the way. They don't look too humanoid and they look alien enough where they feel distinct from the other species in the game, but even so, a lot share very similar looks and lack visual variety. If that's just how the dispensation of genes is in the Angarans, okay, but again, it feels very, I guess for a lack of a better way of saying it, half-baked. Also, just a note that they updated the game so male Ryder can bang Jaal. I don't have a joke there, I just wanted to point it out. You can bang Jaal. Now maybe part of me is judging Andromeda too harshly on visuals, considering that the Legendary Edition did just come out and all the textures are remastered in 4K, and Andromeda isn't. But regardless, I'm pointing this out just so you know that the visuals did not hold up as well as I thought they had. Let's talk about the sound.
Stand down. The charlatan wants this one alive. Out for a walk, Pathfinder?
More of a jaunt. It's good to stretch the legs.
A sense of humor. In Kadara, that'll either get you far or dead.
Voice acting is good enough, but none of the performances really stole the show or stood out to me. I actually don't really dislike either of the voices for male or female Ryder, which you do get a chance to hear even if you don't play as the one at some point. I do enjoy most of the cast, even if none of them are super memorable, or dare I say, kind of boring. None of them are the model of a scientist Solarian, that's for sure. Something I picked up on this time actually in the male Ryder's performance, voiced by Tom Taylorson, is his hesitance to be the Pathfinder, and it's a dynamic that is pretty well communicated throughout in various scenes with your crew as they question your competence and leadership, with Ryder himself not even sure if they're wrong. Something I do think pays off somewhat in the end, and it's a very subtle detail that I missed the first time around. I credit that nuance to a pretty subdued and layered performance. However, it is a frequent thing that you see in Andromeda and conversely B-level action movies, where they don't take any time to linger on any of those moments or these moments here, or let the player or viewer reflect on them. The idea is presented, and before you can really feel or even think about what's going on or what they're trying to communicate, you're on to the next thing. Usually, it goes a little bit like this. I'm sorry about your brother. Brother. Me too. Let's go. In my opinion, the music itself is never bad, but like most else in Andromeda aside from the main title theme when you start at the game, Nothing for me is super memorable. It has the electronic synthetic beats and orchestral numbers you would expect, perhaps at times feeling too repetitive, but the soundtrack rarely feels integral or potent. That's an issue that extends to some of the sound effects you hear. They almost feel muted and kind of, for lack of a better way of putting it, impotent. The jump jets and dashes sound fairly decent though, and have a weight to them that speaks to the fact that they're pushing the weight of 200-pound plus individuals with their armor. And no, this is not a Krogan fat shaming video. I'm just saying my dudes are thick and need that extra juice. However, guns overall lack that punch and feeling of weight behind them with each shot, and a lot of the power sounded like you threw a bowling ball at a pillow, which is not a fun sound. Often they lack that very cerebral and visceral crunch to them that you'd expect. Let's talk about the story now. Mass Effect Andromeda centers around the Andromeda Initiative, an initiative to have some of the major species of the galaxy travel on massive ships known as arcs and stasis pods to the Andromeda Galaxy to find a new home. Now, something I could point out is how the initiative decided to just up and colonize a brand new galaxy without any attempt at seeking out or contacting a centralized galactic government, should they exist, but that's a whole other issue entirely, or a whole other video entirely. After the human arc is almost destroyed and you're attacked by a hostile alien species known as the Ket, you then go to the Nexus, or Andromeda's version of the Citadel. Your task? Find a way to make the various worlds in Helios Cluster habitable, stop the Ket, and solve issues that are arising amongst the initiative's various factions. If that sounds like a lot, it's because it is. I noted this in my head as I was playing that there seemed to be such an insatiable amount of plotlines converging, it's hard to really sink your teeth into any of them or be compelled by them. I suspect I am in the minority here, but I actually don't think anything in the story of Andromeda is inherently bad in concept. Its execution is just severely flawed. Like I said before, it introduces new ideas and themes and concepts, giving you no time to properly spend time thinking about it or even spending time on it. You have the missing Asari, Solarian, Turian, and Quarian arcs, then the resistance with the Angara and the Ket, the Remnant Vaults, planet viability, the mutiny, the Krogan deserters, and tasks upon tasks upon tasks. There's so much going on here in the story, it's very hard to follow what you should care about or who, or really think too much about one thing or the other. Your companions too go from characters who want to bang Ryder for no other reason than he maybe possibly looks vaguely close to a certain famous actor who was in Star Wars and the like, probably. No? You're right, it's probably what I call player character privilege, you know, the kind that says no matter what 3D model monstrosity I create, the other characters will find them devilishly handsome, and they'll be in peak physical condition. So yeah, you go from that to Liam smuggling his stinky ass couch onto the Tempest without permission, and Jal, who despite being on my crew for all of 1 hour, started telling the other members of the team how close he felt to all of them, which I guess he's just being cute. And I get it, but it just cycles the dialogue randomly in the Nomad, but it didn't make me any less uncomfortable to know that. And there's also Cora going on and on about her time as an Asari commando. And you also have Drac, who, because Ryder is inept at communicating his choices as a leader to the team, can't understand why Ryder isn't sufficiently pro-Krogan doing whatever the fuck they want despite everyone else. I did bring up the Jal romance before, so I suppose that makes me a bit of a hypocrite to now say I was made uncomfortable by him, but I stand by my comments. But again, I hate to repeat myself, but in a more thoughtful way, but I'm really good at it, so why not? Andromeda has a lot of quick story developments and character development saturated with endless amounts of tasks and things to do. None of it particularly interesting, and as an experiment, I decided I would just rush to the end of the game at one point and complete the game and see what happens. And supposedly, you'll get more help in the end game the more that you do, but it's not super obvious to me what was different. I'm sure there was some, but I don't see much different here other than except the very faint, "Okay, Ryder, it's just us. Well, gotta go. We can't handle this shit by ourselves." There's definitely some interesting lore and world building done here in the game in an attempt to build a world. And while a lot of the tasks do make Ryder feel more like a community manager than a pathfinder, they do at least attempt to build out the world and lore. Rarely is it ever compelling though. I want to point this out too, that the dialogue at times can be pretty cringeworthy, even some of your own dialogue options. For example, an instance where when you first meet Drac, he kind of just busts through a window, and one of Ryder's dialogue options is, "Impressive entrance," to which Ryder actually says, "That was pretty cool." And that's it. I enjoy the dynamic of Ryder learning to be a leader and be a pathfinder, and his crew not believing his really command material, even if they don't say it out loud. But saying something like that makes me laugh, but it doesn't make the case that Ryder is maturing in his or her role. Now, I'm probably overthinking that and I do appreciate the fact that Ryder is a different character than Shepard and not as smooth or as confident, but I wanted to bring it up so you can make fun of me in the comments, or tell me that I'm wrong. I do understand fundamentally the argument some people would make in defending Andromeda, that it's setting up a grander series and that it has a similar structure to Mass Effect 1. While that is true in some ways, again, it spends way too little time developing any of these points in a meaningful way that makes it interesting to think about and explore. Something worth noting that I credit to Game Informer's own video regarding Andromeda that I forgot to bring up is that Andromeda does feature quite a few interesting and cool tie-ins to the original trilogy of games. The issue is, as I have alluded to, that Andromeda has many pacing issues where you can spend countless hours on one planet just completing meaningless tasks. So one of these tie-in quests to the trilogy requires your patience as you collect these memory fragments scattered throughout the whole game on all of these planets, but most people may not have seen it because of the fact that it takes so long to complete. A critique of that would be, hey, it's a long game. If you don't want to or don't have the time to play it, then don't. Right, and most people, unless they were already brought into the universe or just love Mass Effect, may not spend the time you expect them to on it, and it being a big game does not excuse it from pacing issues that have some folks missing narrative tie-ins to other games or other parts of the story, or franchise. Okay, let's talk about the gameplay now. Mass Effect Andromeda gets dinged quite a bit by fans of the series, myself included, given everything we just talked about. But one of the things that I think is most unanimously agreed upon with Andromeda is that its gameplay is pretty great. It's like a playground of combined tech, biotic, and combat abilities where you'll fling, ding, and ring your enemies all over the map. Sometimes they'll even hide inside the map. You have an insane range of weapon and gear options, and tons of ways to customize the loadout and build. The way it works is that you pick a class profile, which can be changed on the fly at any time, or as you unlock more of them. This gives you certain buffs for certain skills you pick. The types of skills you pick are classified as combat, biotic, and tech. For example, if you have a mixture of tech and biotic skills, you may unlock the Sentinel profile, which gives you buffs to those abilities. Or if you have a mixture of combat and biotic abilities, you unlock the Vanguard profile. Of course, if you play on narrative mode, every class profile is effectively replaced with God mode. And really, they should have known better than to let you play God. It's in this that I think Andromeda really shines, is it lets you really customize your experience. You can acquire any abilities you want, no matter what profile you pick, and it allows you to change builds or change your loadout as you desire. Part of me recognizes that takes a bit of the fun out of having a specific build for the whole game, but regardless, I do find it very flexible and a lot of fun to play with the different builds and skills and abilities. There's plenty of weapons to buy, upgrade, and use, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Of course, you can mod them with attachments as well as your armor. Again, there's just a lot of ways to really have a creative skill set with all these abilities and gear that I really do appreciate. A small detail I do like as well is if you're mostly a biotic class, Ryder's dash and jump is activated via biotics and not via jump jets on the armor. The ability to research and create gear as well is a really good idea, and it works pretty well here, and it does incentivize you to explore more of the planets and more of the areas that you encounter or you go to. You get AVP points too, you get as well for building outposts in the world, helping the initiative make more planets viable, and just generally helping the initiative any way you can. These let you unlock pods where you can have crews go out and acquire resources in real time, or it gives you bonuses to merchants like discounts or access to different gear, among other things. Then there's strike teams, which again don't really affect the game much beyond getting you some credits and some gear and packages, and these operate in real time as well. And it is also attached to the multiplayer. I did play the multiplayer maybe like 20 or 30 rounds, and while it is fun, it's also repetitive and can be a bit of a slog considering the enemy AI across the whole game has one speed, and that's go around there and cover and flank and charge them. There are some issues in dialogue scenes, and this can be likely attributed to the animation and story parts as well, but there's jarring moments of the game that left me confused. For example, you'll be talking to the Ungaran resistance leader Ephra with Jaal, and the conversation between the three of you is pretty normal. After the conversation, Ephra hangs up and Jaal is just gone. If you go and find him, he says you earned his trust. I think that went well. I point this out because you'd think, why doesn't the scene just continue? What is the purpose of me now going to Jaal to get his thoughts when he was just there? And this happens in other moments as well, but this was the most memorable to me. Furthermore, there's a lot of conversations to be had with your squad, but they also email you rather incessantly about things. I used to joke with my friend in the Trilogy how squad mates would email you and it's like, you know, you can just come talk to me, we're on the same ship. But Andromeda, it's like it's on overdrive. In some ways, it's cool. Liam is telling me about how his smelly ass couch won't keep him from getting work done. And I know I ding on Liam a lot for the couch, but come on, bro. And Vetra and Dracker are setting up deals. It's good to know that they're working, and budgets are limited, I know, in game development, but it felt like for as much as you can talk to your squad, they're just as much as emailing me to tell me things as well. Actually, it's pretty funny if you don't go and talk to some of your crew like Liam or Gil for the whole game, because then their emails read like the ramblings of a madman. The Angara have a bara, where PB got tipsy. She's a flirt, even alert. But sauced, she's a pixie. 60 hours straight keeping your ship afloat, does it show? I made that sound way more sexual than it probably was. Just putting this out there, had a friend in HUST1, Dondi. We were clearing a hospital after an earthquake and she got hit with a chunk of rebar, split her helmet, kept going. 4 minutes technically dead, but we got her into an emergency stasis. Thing is, because they're so good at patching people up, she was back with us in a week. She shouldn't have been, sure, Dondi's a vet, she'd seen some shit, but you don't walk that off. She worked that quake site for a week, then disappeared for 5 months. She came back, but different. The other vets, they knew. Take the time if you need it. You don't die and just shake it off. Now imagine you hadn't spoken to any of these folks at all throughout your entire playthrough, or very sparingly. You'd probably see this and say, what the f are you talking about? Finally, romances are kind of just there. I did Cora the first time, and this time Adam Driver Ryder did PB, a female Angaran, and another Asari journalist named Carrie. And while he loved them all equally, he loves them all uniquely. None of these felt genuine or interesting, and I wasn't attached to any of them, though I do remember the Cora romance more fondly, which would make sense considering that I'm convinced that half the Andromeda budget went into Cora and Ryder smashing booties. I actually should correct myself, hence the random interruption here, and say that I have only tried these romances that I have described here. The Angaran and Carrie romances are not given as much priority in romance scenes as the other more prominent secondary and tertiary characters, so I should say out of these 4 romances, I really felt invested in one, and that was Cora during my first run of the game many years ago. So to be fair, I didn't give PB much of a shot, and the other 2, at least in my view, were meaningless romps. I haven't tried the others, so I apologize for speaking so definitively without those caveats I just spoke of. Also, I don't have a recording of myself in the male Ryder and Cora romance scene, but I did find a short clip online that I want to show you, so when I say they spent like half the budget of the game on the Cora and male Ryder romance scene, you'll know what I mean. Just pay attention to the animation quality in this scene, and then remember what the rest of the game looks like throughout. If your reaction here is nice, followed by what in the f am I watching and why is it making me so sweaty, then you're feeling the right things. The Nomad is the vehicle you will use very often to get around the map, and I actually think it controls very well in comparison to the Mako from the first Mass Effect, a point that some people may or may not like me saying, but it has different settings, like all-wheel drive and traction mode, so you're never hilariously going out of control when driving around. And with a pretty forgiving and powerful boost, it allows you to still have those insurmountable I'm gonna scale this cliff that I probably shouldn't be able to scale, but I'm going to anyway type of moments. Regrettably, it doesn't have any weaponry, so it is annoying to have to exit every time you want to take some enemies down, but otherwise it's a solid vehicle overall, and I did enjoy driving it around actually a great deal. Something I don't think that I covered much, hence why I'm throwing it in here at the last moment, the way jumping kind of changes the whole way the game is played. Mass Effect 3 played with the idea of verticality more by offering ladders and other ways of moving up and down areas throughout the levels, and it actually did make those levels feel much more dynamic and interesting. And Andromeda continues that, but with the ability to jump and dash, it takes it a step further. There's actually small sections I did rather enjoy platforming through certain areas. I do think it starts to bring Mass Effect into the realm of having an identity crisis, but the platforming is not too heavy, and regardless, it does add more organic fights and lets the player experiment with different ways of getting around the battlefield. All in all, to say that the gameplay is chaotic, but most of the time you are in control and able to move around as you see fit. Actually, super duper last thing is performance and stability. Andromeda was known at launch for being rather unstable and buggy and glitchy, and after a number of patches, the worst of said bugs were addressed back in the day, but it's 2021 now, and if you want to know if the game is still buggy, it's a yes and a no. Nothing, at least in my playtime, was very disruptive or frequent enough where it bothered me too much. I did experience about 3 to 4 crashes on PS5, as well as one bug I mentioned before where I was in the Nomad in a vault, which, if you don't know, isn't supposed to be a thing that's possible. Here and there I experienced another couple of hitches with slight stutters in the game when transitioning in scenes and weird animation quirks here and there, and this one weird one where I got knocked down and couldn't get back up or interact with the character at all or what have you, and again, what is happening here? I don't know. Possibly some kind of seizure, but I'm not a doctor. The frame rate is at 30 FPS and it didn't dip at all and remained pretty stable throughout. I'm sure there were dips, I just didn't notice them myself, although after playing the trilogy at 60 FPS, part of me wishes Andromeda was also able to hit 60, but otherwise not too bad in that department. There's some texture pop-ins all around, but again, it's not too frequent where I was significantly bothered by it. So yeah, the game does still have a fair share of bugs and issues, but nothing on the level of discouraging me from playing the game further or completing it. Okay, I tried to cover everything, but in the event that I did miss anything, please, oh please, oh please, scream at me very loudly below. I want to get into the most important part of any game, despite the issues I mentioned and talked about above. Is the game fun? Is Mass Effect Andromeda fun? Honestly, it is. If you go in expecting masterful writing and characters with some fun action and set pieces, you'll probably be disappointed in this game, and to be honest, I am overall disappointed in the game, even if I do like it overall. But jumping around and blasting away enemies, zipping around the map, and traveling through dense and colorful areas, all the while changing your build around on the fly, creates a very fun gameplay experience. Something as simple as pulling in a cat, holding them in motion, and then throwing them either out of bounds of the map or into another enemy brought a smile to my face each and every time, and I enjoyed it to almost an absurd degree. Personally, I have always found Mass Effect 3's gameplay to be a bit tighter than Andromeda overall, but I still think Andromeda is no slouch in the gameplay department. If you know anything about Andromeda's development, then you'll know that BioWare was forced by EA to use the Frostbite engine, and that the Frostbite engine was supposedly hostile to the type of RPG that BioWare wanted to make or usually makes, so they spent a good chunk of the development time building the tools to even do what they wanted to do, and thus they only built the majority of Andromeda in under 2 years. On the one hand, respect. Considering that, the game is actually pretty good for being built in less than 2 years. That being said, it is a far cry from the original trilogy of games. I think the main question here is, after all this time and with a freshly remastered trilogy of games, is Mass Effect Andromeda essential in comparison to the trilogy? No. I'm sure you could just read or find the plot synopsis online or YouTube it and get yourself caught up for Mass Effect 4 or 5 or Mass Effect Turian Bathrobe Simulator, whatever they decide to call it. I say that because this video, when I first thought of it, was originally intended to be titled In Defense of Mass Effect Andromeda, and I was prepared to come on here and defend a lot of it to you. But the more I played and refreshed my memory on things, the more I felt that this would have been dishonest. And I'm not even saying don't play Mass Effect Andromeda. The buy-in for it is about $5 or $10, so there's very little risk involved in trying this game out. Just don't go in expecting the same quality that you got with the trilogy of games that we just got remastered. Again, I like Andromeda, I really do, but I also understand why so many can't stomach it. It's a blast to play and has a lot of flexibility in its environments and how you can build your character that it remains engaging throughout. But even then, for a series with such high quality writing and characters, it severely, in my opinion, misses that mark, even if some of the characters and writing is enjoyable. So don't not play Mass Effect Andromeda. It's a good game overall, but don't feel like you have to as well. There are other ways to understand the story and what happens in Andromeda without actually playing it if you don't have that time to sink into it. It's a good game, but I hesitate to recommend it actively as I know that it does have a lot of issues, and again, it does miss that mark of quality that we are used to with the original trilogy of games. But thanks for watching, I guess what you'd call a 2021 review of Mass Effect Andromeda. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and take to the comments below and tell me what you think. What do you think about Andromeda? Like it, hate it, not a big fan, but don't dislike it as much as everyone else? Or maybe I'm wrong about a lot of things. Tell me, let me know. In the meantime, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe for more content like this and more content that is not like this. And finally, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon, and I love you all. Maybe. Hey there, if you're still watching this video actually, thank you. I just want to mention that I also have a Twitter account and Instagram account that you can follow if you want to. Those will be on the screen and in the description below. I am also slowly setting up a Twitch channel, but I will announce it when it's ready, and until it's ready, I'll probably stream to YouTube, which I do want to do more of. Also, I do have maybe one more video about Andromeda I want to do that won't take as long as this one, so stay tuned for that. And I am also looking forward to covering more current games once the news picks up again. And anyway, I just want to say one more time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.